I think that Britain will separate from the EU. I think maybe it's time, especially in light of what's happened with the craziness that's going on.
Breaking news out of London that could have serious economic and political reverberations for the rest of us.
The UK has voted out.
While the Brits were waking up in the ruins of their nation and saying, oh God, what have we done? A lot of Americans were looking over and saying, oh God, what are we about to do?
This is the end of the world. Trump is probably gonna win, not because he's smart, but because we're so stupid.
I really do see a parallel between what's happening in the United States and what's happening here.
See?
Few inches later.
Right now, a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency. The business tycoon and TV personality.
Freak the F out. Run screaming around in your underwear up and down the street.
Donald Trump is the President of the United States.
Unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes.
It's the time for real wisdom. Lightning round.
If Trump wins, how about bursting into tears and screaming fuck for the next 45 minutes?
The 45th President of the United States, winning the most unreal, surreal election we have ever seen.
America is crying tonight. I'm not sure how much of America, but a very, very significant portion, and I mean literally crying.
Everybody is crying and so upset, and it is the end of their world.
Feels like the end of the world.
We were on Lifetime last night, and I was slowly getting drunk is what happened to me.
How do we explain how this is possible?
So what comes next? A long negotiation.
Will we see the end of the EU as we know it?
Casa nostra, non solo nostra di noi italiani, ma è casa nostra.
Sprawą, którą będziemy podejmowali, będzie oczywiście los polskich obywateli, którzy mieszkają.
Dieses Einschnitts in den nächsten Tagen, Wochen, Monaten und Jahren.
So what a year. So welcome to 2032. So we're looking back now to all of you in 2016. And as you probably know, Britain voted out of the European Union. And unfortunately, Theresa May, she doesn't quite manage to negotiate her way out. And another election is held in 2018. And believe it or not, folks, you vote this guy in. Yeah, it doesn't get any better. So after that, as you know, Mr. Farage is not exactly pro-EU. So we managed to basically vote out and we got a very, very good deal. But that kind of led to the collapse of the EU. Lots and lots of countries voted out shortly after, and unfortunately for the EU, it fell apart. This was to President Trump's delight, however. And after Mr. Farage decided that he wanted to hop over the pond, he took role as Vice President, oddly, after Donald Trump won his second term. But when it came to 2024, Donald Trump, he would not leave. He just flat out refused. He said, nope, I'm not leaving. And believe it or not, the American people, they stood behind him. He managed to convince them that what he was doing was great. But really, behind the scenes, it really wasn't. He didn't manage to build his wall, luckily, but he did manage to put up a firewall around America. So he managed to force America out of the internet and to isolate them. So us over in the pond, we didn't have access to Facebook or Google or any of the American companies anymore. And what he did was described as the UN as unprecedented for a democracy. Really, were they really still a democracy? That's up for debate, but he, after building the firewall, decided that he was going to impose some rules. And these rules were that he was keeping logs on completely everything, what everybody was going to do for a year. Along with that, he was able to initiate hacking from the government on their civilians. And not just that, they were also able to hack people outside of the government and outside of their own country. And that didn't make sense for us all over here in the UK. And it brought into question. And coming back to sort of 2016 where we are, I've got something to tell you. That's not really the US, and that doesn't really happen, at least I don't hope it happens, but that is happening right now. So on the 29th of November, a couple of days ago now, the UK sneakily, without many people realising, passed a law that meant that they could now, with the Home Secretary and a board of judges, hack pretty much anybody with it being legal. And additionally, they're going to be logging our entire internet history for a year. And that's not necessarily the biggest, scariest part. The scariest part is that they're logging it. And to me, as much as bringing it on to the topic of hackers, that you have good hackers and you have bad hackers, what a bad hacker is going to do with the data of an entire nation? Or the UN doesn't really want this to happen, but other countries are bound to adopt it because the UK did it. Why can't everybody else do it? What happens when the government suddenly have logs and logs of data that they could potentially be vulnerable? As computer systems improve, so do hackers. And the question I propose to you is, how safe do you feel with your information being logged on a computer somewhere where you don't know? Thank you for listening.